Good morning, members of the press. Good morning to St. Lucians listening, both here in St. Lucia and abroad. We would like to welcome you to our first press conference for the year, and we wish you, from the Office of the Prime Minister, a very happy new year, good health and strength and mercies from our God. I would now like to call on the Prime Minister to deliver some remarks. As you know, we will be having this press conference. Prime Minister will be interacting with members of the media. Any questions, queries that you may have can be directed to the Prime Minister. And hopefully we'll try to take some questions from the audience via our Facebook and YouTube pages, but cognizant of the fact that today is Cabinet, so we will only be with you for a limited amount of time. So I now would like to call on the Prime Minister, Honorable Philip J. Pierre, to address you.
Thank you. Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, good morning. Thank you for joining me this morning. I want to discuss with you the distressing economic and social conditions we met in St. Lucia when our party came into government 6 months ago. Their gravity makes it incumbent upon me to remind the people of them, not because we are daunted by them, for we are not, but because the people of St. Lucia must never forget that these are consequences of the injustices that were wreaked upon our country by the maladministration of the last UWP government under the leadership of the now leader of the opposition. In an introductory message in the 2021 SLP General Election Manifesto, I had made the following statement. Since June 6, 2016, the country has gone through a very trying time of mismanagement under a UWP administration. Sadly, this mismanagement has been exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, we are left with a huge challenge of rescuing our country from an economic and financial disaster following a 5-year period of reckless borrowing and spending and an unprecedented level of corruption. However, on assuming office, we have discovered that the fiscal and economic situation of the country was far worse and its economic development far more badly retarded than we had imagined when we crafted the manifesto. The stark reality is that we are dealing with disastrous public finances, an economy damaged by incompetent management and pushed into further decline by the COVID-19 pandemic, a huge sovereign debt of unprecedented levels, and the enormous mess of an unfinished St. Jude Hospital and the Ewanora International Airport redevelopment projects. But we are not intimidated by the magnitude of the task that the people of St. Lucia entrusted us with. We're not afraid, for we in this government are up to the challenge. In the 2021 manifesto, we said, "My task together with my team of able men and women is to restore St. Lucia to a level of financial stability and to create an enabling environment for wealth creation and employment, particularly among the youth." Therefore, we are confident in our ability to accomplish our mission. We will overcome the challenges that 5 years of bungling and irresponsible UWP governance bequeathed us. Like most patriotic and caring St. Lucians, my government is sensitive, concerned, and worried about the COVID pandemic raging in St. Lucia, the region, and the world. No one can predict the future. No one is perfect. This was the case before the pandemic, and it will continue to be the case after the pandemic. Our economy is suffering from COVID fatigue. The United Workers' Party government maximized the concessionary borrowing for COVID-related spending, while callously leaving behind an unfinished St. Jude Hospital and an under-resourced OKEU hospital. Scientists have used the most sophisticated techniques to try predicting the behavior of the COVID-19 virus. Still, they have come up short. 10 weeks ago, there was no Omicron variant. Omicron is driving up infection rates around the world at a rate not seen with any previous variant of the COVID-19 virus. In the United States, nearly 800,000 cases are being reported each day, double what it was 2 weeks ago. In our region, record levels of infections are being reported every day. In practically every country, testing resources are being challenged. Even if these soaring daily infection rates, scientists believed that because most Omicron cases are mild and do not send as many people to hospital as the Delta variant, that the world might be witnessing the beginning of the end of the COVID-19 pandemic. But a week ago, a new variant was discovered in France that scientists believe will be more infectious than Omicron, while the WHO has not yet declared this as a variant of concern. It's an indication of how quickly things can change in our COVID-19 world. With these swift and frequent changes in the behavior of the COVID-19 virus, it's no surprise that our governments are struggling, all governments in fact, are struggling to come up with effective policies to deal with the social and economic impacts of the pandemic. For governments like ours, who carefully monitor the public health policies of the USA and the UK, which account for most of our visitor arrivals, it's impossible to keep up with the almost daily changes in these countries. One day, we hear of a change in isolation, in the isolation period. The next day, it's a change in the testing window. Changes every day. Only on Saturday, even after a rise in daily infections, the UK government scrapped all pre-departure and post-arrival tests for fully vaccinated travelers. From July, the Delta variant was detected in St. Lucia, and immediate policy measures were implemented using evidence-based information. This resulted in the transmission rate in early December being 0.8 and the rate of positivity 2.7. Although these statistics in December were trending in the right direction, it was always anticipated globally that a fifth wave would arrive after the high risk of the December month festivities. The Ministry of Health carried out an evaluation of the management of the fourth wave with a view to strengthen the response measures in the fifth wave. However, the fifth wave was accompanied by a new variant, Omicron. The following additional response measures were put in place in anticipation of the increase in infections. Strengthening of the public health measures. Updated public service announcements were prepared to encourage the use of face masks, physical distancing, hand washing, and living a healthy lifestyle. Appeals encouraging vaccination were intensified. There was a strengthening of the immunization program island-wide. Introduction of the one-dose Johnson & Johnson vaccine, in addition to the AstraZeneca and Pfizer vaccines already available. Plans were put in place for community-based vaccination. Enhanced testing capacity to manage increasing cases by increasing procurement of reagents and test kits. The capacity of the Ezra laboratory was strengthened with the engagement of more human resource and new capacity to run 2,000 samples for testing daily. A new testing site was set up at VG Multipurpose Complex. The respiratory hospital, improvements were made there. Employment of 14 patient welfare assistants setting up of a functioning telecommunication system, both internet and landline, increasing of ancillary staff, the setting up of a central monitoring system for 24-hour monitoring of patients in the high dependency units, improvement at the radiology units by the installation of a new portable X-ray machine and repairs to the malfunctioning X-ray machines in the emergency room. There was increased procurement of equipment and supplies. The welfare of our frontline workers was prioritized by the procurement of personal protective equipment to ensure at least 3 months' supplies were available on the island at any time. And I want again to take the opportunity to thank these frontline workers, doctors, nurses, all the staff, porters, firemen, all those involved in the front line of the battle against COVID. The intensive care unit was restocked with needed supplies and medication. Confinement hours were reviewed. In spite of these measures, we are encouraging St. Lucians to get vaccinated, and it has been proven that in most cases, vaccinated people without pre-existing conditions, even if they get infected, will experience less hospitalization and a lower risk of death. I believe, and I continue to believe, that the majority of solutions are responsible, but we ask that our citizens follow the proven public health methods that will mitigate against the spread of the COVID virus and to get vaccinated. COVID is a global problem and calls for shared sacrifice, discipline, and cooperation from everyone. I remain deeply troubled by the high incidence of crime, in particular violent murders. We are beginning to look like a country consumed with anger and rage. We already have, for the month of January, 2 murders. As a country, we must return quickly to having respect for life. That respect comes with recognizing the rights of others and giving to every citizen what is their due. Our young people cannot be settling the differences with the power of the gun. There are just too many guns in the hands of citizens who should not be carrying them. My government is committed to supporting the police in the fight against crime. We continue, even in a time of very limited fiscal space, to provide the police with the resources in that fight. While the root cause of serious crime may stem from dysfunctional social conditions, there are measures that can be taken in the short term to alleviate the scourge of violent crime. I am calling on the management of the police to do more and to take control of our streets and communities when crime appears to be flourishing. There are legal means by which we can do that. We need to get those unlicensed firearms off our streets. In the coming weeks, I'm expecting to see some police initiatives to bring the level of crime under control. We cannot have another year of so many homicides. In the meantime, my government will continue with its plans to change the social structures that drive our young people into antisocial behavior and criminality. I call on all citizens to lend support to the police in the efforts to fight crime. We all stand to gain from if violent crime is brought under control. The social and economic cost of crime is becoming a heavy burden on our country. We can do more, the government, the police, and the citizens, to correct this growing problem of violent crime. To bring the crime situation under control, my government will provide the resources, and the police is expected to make effective use of these resources, and the rest of us must lend support to the work of the police. As Minister of Finance, together with the Cabinet and officials of the Ministry of Finance, I'm now engaged in the preparation of the 2022-2023 estimates of expenditure and appropriation bill, constitutionally due to be laid in Parliament by April 2022. These documents will chart the way towards the following: maintenance of an adequate macroeconomic policy framework, implementation of an overall economic and reform program, a policy mix of revenue enhancing and expenditure containment measures to positively impact and improve fiscal and debt sustainability, policies to improve the business environment, ease in doing business, and increase local and foreign investment, good governance, transparency, and accountability in the management of the finances of the country, outlawing of the reckless practices of the former Minister of Finance when he sanctioned 9 months ago an advance of $7 million of taxpayers' funds for vaccines that have not been received by the people of St. Lucia. Education and social enhancement projects for the people of St. Lucia. Implementation of the youth economy and creation of an enabling environment for the growth and expansion of small and medium-sized businesses. Adoption and mitigation methods to deal with climate change. The budget will seek to transform our economy and citizens in preparation for the changing global environment. We are focused on improving the lives of the people of St. Lucia. We are focused in restoring good governance in the management of the country affairs, and we will put constitutional and other mechanisms in place to make it unthinkable for future governments to engage in the corruption and malfeasance of the last 5 years of UWP rule. We will bring discipline and transparency in the unfinished government infrastructural projects so that they do not become milestones of debt on the country and conduit for the personal gains of some members of the former United Workers' Party government. In the meantime, my government is unmoved by the shameless, provocative, and seditious utterances of those who refuse to accept the democratic will of the people when they were voted out of office by a landslide only 6 months ago. Even if their bad behavior in government made our island the laughing stock of the world. The men and women in the government of the St. Lucia Labour Party are undertaking their responsibilities with unfazed determination, unresolved enthusiasm, and unflinching commitment to put our people first. As we prepare to observe the 44th anniversary of independence under the theme Duva Assam, celebrating our people, I call on all St. Lucians at home and in the diaspora to join us in the exciting journey of inclusion, tolerance, compassion, and wealth creation that will lead to transformative change for our people as we battle with the COVID pandemic as a strong, determined nation. I'm confident that with the help of God, we will prevail. I thank you.
Okay, so we'll now open the floor. PM has made an extensive statement to the media. We will open the floor to any questions that you may have based on the statement, and then perhaps if time permits, we can venture into other things.
Karim Nelson, Hot 7. With regards to the radical investment vaccine issue, you mentioned that EC $2 million had been recouped out of the $7 million. My questions, why only $2 million thus far? Is that part of the arrangement with radical investment? And which agency is acting on behalf of the government in trying to recoup that money? And what efforts are being made to recoup the total balance?
First of all, the first question you must ask is why were the procurement laws in the country broken by the former Minister of Finance when he sanctioned that payment? If that behavior was not that reckless, there would have been no reason to do that. Because the procurement law states clearly in the Public Procurement Act the percentage of money that must be spent in any emergency procurement, that this percentage of money that must be given in advance. The former Minister of Finance was reckless when he put the taxpayers of the country at risk, when he spent $7 million, money that could be used for computers for the young people of St. Lucia, money that could be used to buy medication in the hospitals, money that could be used to improve, to extend the welfare payments to the poor people of the country, money that could be used for the distress fund. When in his reckless behavior, he spent $7 million. He ordered that $7 million be spent for vaccines that have never arrived in St. Lucia. The government is using its best efforts to return, for the person who was given the money, to return it to the people of St. Lucia, to return it to the treasury. But our issue is, first of all, that behavior was uncalled for. And the people of St. Lucia must never forget this act of recklessness and immaturity by the former Minister of Finance, when he knew, he should have known, if he didn't know, he should have known, that you cannot break the procurement rules and advance money, so much money, in a country that was in a pandemic. All I can answer you is that we are using our best efforts to get that money returned to us as soon as possible opportunity.
Yes, Pierre? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Is it a follow-up question?
Well, it's about COVID management.
Okay. Go
Okay.
ahead, and then we will.
Yeah, so
move to anything we have.
we continue to see that the numbers in terms of vaccinated people not increasing significantly. Even at the latest press conference, we realized there's an overall decline in people getting vaccinated. What new methods does the government intend on pursuing to drive those numbers up? And has there been any consideration for mandation of vaccines for the public sector, as in some cases in our neighboring islands?
First of all, there are only two measures you can take to create an uptick in vaccinations. One, moral suasion. You can tell people for their benefits, look at the pros and look at the cons, look at the evidence, and decide whether they get vaccinated. Or you can mandate vaccinations and make them compulsory. These are only two measures you can take. Mandate, or tell people to understand their responsibility. The government of St. Lucia has not yet taken a position to mandate vaccinations. But what we say is that if we find that there is no other way where people refuse to get vaccinated, we have to consider all the options available to us.
Yes, Rihanna?
Yes. Yeah. Riani Isidore, NBC Prime. Mr. Prime Minister, you've alluded just now to instances of supposed malfeasance on the part of the former administration, former finance minister. I know your government is looking into these situations, but has any of them met the threshold that could trigger, say, for example, a criminal probe? And given the fact that you say the former finance minister has broken procurement laws or procurement rules, what options is available to your administration to sort of bring in some accountability?
Well, you see, Riani, all options are open. The legislation for special prosecutor is now being prepared. The special prosecutor will look into all matters that deserve to be looked at. I don't want to make any pronouncements if I am not sure, if I'm not certain the next steps. All I can tell you is the government is actively pursuing these acts where we believe that the money of the taxpayers was incorrectly used. We leave no stone unturned. We'll use legal methods, not threats or intimidation. We'll use legal methods to ensure, first of all, that it never happens again. And secondly, the people of St. Lucia must get some satisfaction if the money was put into either personal use or if the money was maladministered.
Okay. I wanted to segue into something I think you touched on in your address, with some sedition and even violent rhetoric being sort of spewed on a certain radio station who your administration has already flagged for operating illegally. My first question is, one, are you surprised that that kind of rhetoric, that kind of narrative is being promoted there. And again, this is a question that you would have been confronted with before. Why is that station and any other station who is found wanting of the laws here are still operating in our space?
First of all, the people of St. Lucia must realize the desperation of the former Prime Minister and his party and his acolytes. The desperation. January the 26th is going to be 6 months since the Labour Party was elected into office. 6 months. Out of these 6 months, the former Prime Minister spent 4.5 months out of the island. He's returned and he's forgotten that he's no longer the Prime Minister. His first action was to increase the expenses for his office. His second action was to make demands on the treasury of the country for things that he did not make available to the leader of the opposition at the time. And now his desperation has led him not to condemn seditious statements made on a radio station that he himself has been a frequent personality. Yes. And up to this morning, you heard on that station the calls to burn the country. Any responsible leader would have immediately made a statement disassociating himself from these utterances. But in his desperation, in the lust and the greed for power, in the lack of understanding that the democracy has prevailed and the people have elected a new government, they will say nothing about it. But I'll tell you something. We are a government of laws, a government that believes in the rule of law. We believe that legal methods are the way to cause change, legal and democratic methods. The station that you speak of, it's been clear that it is acting illegally. It's clear that it's on the airways illegally. But we guard jealously the freedom of speech of people in the country. So we are taking all the steps. They've been warned, they've been written, they've disobeyed. If that continues, the full force of the law will have to be brought upon anyone who breaks the law. There is no reason why a station that is operating illegally, even when they are told that they are operating illegally, to continue. So something will happen, but as I said before, we're exercising caution and patience.
Before I go to my colleague, I wanted to go back to the pandemic response. We are in the fifth wave. It's well established, and the cases are sort of higher than expected, and school has reopened. So is there any decision or considerations perhaps to review the decision to allow schools to reopen? That's my last one.
Yeah, thanks. First of all, Riani, I want to reiterate that the decisions that we take regarding COVID are driven by medical advice. There's a press conference today where the situation regarding schools will be properly ventilated. But we understand the concern of the public, but as I said, these decisions are moved by scientific evidence, and today there'll be some announcement on the future of the opening of schools.
Yeah, just one small question for me. The opposition leader recently made a claim that the opposition has not been involved in the COVID-19 decisions. I would just like to ask, how true is that statement?
The opposition leader usually makes these claims. The public is invited to join in the COVID response. There is a COVID management committee where we invite everyone to get involved, to give advice, to give counsel. What the opposition leader is busy doing, he's busy playing politics with the COVID response. He's busy in spreading propaganda, lies, and rumors about the COVID response. The opposition leader must respect the will of the people of St. Lucia. He was elected as the Member of Parliament for Miku South and not prime minister. He must understand that and continue his role as leader of his two-man opposition and stop the lies, the rumors, and the propaganda that he's spreading.
Bonjour, Monsieur le Premier ministre.
Bonjour.
La bonne année.
Merci bien.
Situation Pierre, particulièrement avec Prime Minister GIS. Nous savons que Covid là dangereux, qui a fait chaque problème en pays c'est à présent. Mais il y a une situation que je voulais discuter quand nous avons commencé l'année 9 là, c'est agricole, développement agricole. Nous savons ministre là, Monsieur Prosper, qui a travaillé, nous avons ça, nous avons mis pile force de développement agricole. Mais nous avons really comme Premier ministre, qui qualité plan pour développement agricole, parce que la situation Covid là a fait encore plus important pour nous travailler, pour nous assurer nous-mêmes, pour nous vendre notre pays. Qui qualité plan en place pour garder ça? Principalement, développement agricole là au pays, et qui a commencé. Quand nous sommes Premier ministre, ministre là même, chaque aller divers côtés, chaque discuter, puis les femmes, chaque une discussion. So, nous avons voulu de voir sur ça. Et l'autre, là, Monsieur le Premier ministre, criminel, nous savons, il a venu encore plus et plus. Et nous avons aujourd'hui ça en anglais, qui est pour le gouvernement, plan pour adresser, pour dire ça, pour parler de pays en créole, à ce qui est le gouvernement, plan pour adresser le crime qui a affecté nous en pays à tête. Plus à présent, Premier ministre, merci.
Merci bien. Si nous parlons de l'agriculture, premier, l'année, lorsqu'on parle de l'agriculture, on parle de débat en CDC. FIG et food security. Pour assurer tout le monde n'y a assez manger planté pour ça tout le monde a jeune manger. Nous parlons de FIG avant. Le gouvernement flambois te promet moun yo te ka voye fig matnik. Femme planté en chay fig. Yo mette tout l'argent yo en fig. Yo mette tout l'argent yo pour prendre place qui patine qui te quitté fig et planté fig. Parce que le gouvernement promet yo. Yo dit yo déjà scié bagay avant yo gagne élection pour voye fig matnik. Pas yon gwen fig. J'avine allé matnik et c'est fa Martini tout effort yo en fig. Gouvernement flamboyant a quitté Winfresh. Quand Winfresh c'est place là qui a gain fig. Yo quitté Winfresh collapse. Yo pas fait rien about ça. So farmer te joine des cool des abattements flamboyant. Yon fig parti à Martinique, c'est fama yote pour mettre fama yote kay voye fig Martinique et Martinique et France et deuxième là une fraîche. So farmers c'est fama ça yo di presse. C'est ça nous ka fait. Nous ka ouais si nous ça commencer voye fig encore en supermarché l'Angleterre. C'est un travail qui est bien well avec le ministre agriculture, avec les gens ministres qui travaillent pour essayer de faire ça. C'est le premier bail là. Deuxième bail là, nous avons si nous avons 20 figues regional, Trinidad, Antigua, Barbados et Pascal, regional. Mais nous les trois cas avec shipping, la pani on chaille bâtiment qui a laissé passer là. So nous trois cas ça là. So ça ils a fait figue là. Et nous ka verti moun pour si nous ça manger plus figue en pays faire toute l'autre qualité dish figue pie, banana bread bail comme ça en pays. Nous savons si nous ça jeune, si nous ça faire jeune monde manger plus fig parce que ça fig son bail qui bon avec potassium bail comme ça fig. En l'autre affaires agricoles, là non chay bagay neuf. Honey, simos. C'est bail là qui moun en la terre vle. Ou nous passons faire plus simos quand moun veut. Ce gouvernement quand il pousser simos, quand il pousser honey pour nous ça ni ça pour export. Coco, chocolates, l'autre bail gouvernement qui a poussé encore. Si nous ça créer, nous ca diversify. Si nous ca faire ça, nous ca verti farmer pour planter pour gens de pays pour manger plus local produce. Il plus bon pour santé yo et qui plus bon pour ces vieux diseases là nous ca jeune parce que c'est au mal manger. Ça c'est agriculture. Crème nous bien désappointés avec affaires crime là en pays. Deux moun jamais y aura chez deux moun avec janvier juste commencé. Tout le monde ni pour joindre ça. Mais ces bails là ou qu'attendre à sous des radio stations. C'est ma chance là ou qu'attendre. C'est insight là qui a insight moun, qui a verti moun pour faire ci, faire ça parce que yo pas en pouvoir, ça pas bon. Parce que yo a verti moun, faire ci, faire ça. Autant bon matin à la radio station on moun dit les mains dit fait en cette ici et personne pour encore dire ou pas pour faire ça. So ça pas pour dire ça. So ça fait insight moun ba you can dire about faire ça autant you can dire about faire ministre gouvernement si faire prime minister si faire ça. So ça va bon. Mais crime jeune moun, crime mode, ça fait gang là. Nous avons créé sous police pour faire un petit miette pli within the law. Nous pas veillons casser personne. Within the law. And within the law means nous ne voulons plus police qui savent ça qu'ils fait à sous chemin. Nous voulons plus police patrols à sous chemin. Nous pas voulons personne casser loi. Mais nous pas dit police casser pièce loi. Mais nous avons dit nous visons plus police patrols. Nous visons plus police qui ni expérience et qui ça fait bail pour faire mon de bout ça fait comme ça là. Mais là nous bagaille je sais ici pas qu'à oublier et naidi en bouffe anglais et patois. La dernière place je ca custody suites. Code c'est qu'à mettre moun là yo casser loi. Gouvernement faut voir croiser. So là autant moun ka dit arrêtez moun si yo pas ni masse. Arrêtez moun si yo pas ni pas ça. Là arrêtez yo ko ou ka mettre yo. Là arrêtez yo ko ka mettre yo. Bordelais remand moun qui remand body lan plus moun remand body parce que lan moun qui convicted. So nous know again gouvernement flabo patika sing process yo croiser custody suite là avant yo savent ko yo ka mettre moun en custody suite là. So nous là yo ka mettre moun là yo arrêté. I want to say it in English. We have an issue with being able to keep persons when they are arrested. The custody suites was destroyed by the last government without any foresight or without any idea where would prisoners be held when they are arrested. The remand population of Bordelais is greater than the convicted population. So Bordelais is overpacked. So the question is, where do we place people when they are arrested in this COVID environment? Again, because of the lack of foresight and the haste of the United Workers' Party, they destroyed the custody suites with no idea as to what are the next steps. We are going to build, even within the serious first fiscal constraints that we have, as a matter of urgency, we started the process. Only last week, Thursday, I received from the Ministry of Planning the plans for the new custody suites, and hopefully very soon, construction on these custody suites is an emergency, will begin next month, February, hopefully, if all goes as planned.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And just to let you know, this week we continue our budget policy preparations, as Prime Minister stated. We will be having the estimates in March, and St. Lucians can look forward to the amelioration of the conditions of citizens in this country when Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre presents his first budget to St. Lucia in March, April. I was just informed by the Ministry of Education that they will be hosting their press conference here. So the media is invited to stay back, and St. Lucians to also tune in as the Ministry of Education addresses the country on the way forward for school. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.